What's the dumbest reason you've ever been punished by a teacher? This happened when I was in 8th grade, and I'm still mad about it 15 years later. I had this English teacher, Mrs. Henderson, who was absolutely obsessed with perfect handwriting. Not just neat handwriting, perfect handwriting. She would dock points if your letters weren't the exact height she wanted, if your spacing was off by even a millimeter, or if you used the wrong type of pen. We're talking about a woman who carried a ruler around specifically to measure the margins on her papers. She had this whole system where she'd give you a minus point for every handwriting infraction she found. Anyway, we were doing this poetry unit where we had to write out famous poems by hand and turn them in as assignments. The idea was that copying great poetry would help us appreciate the rhythm and word choice better. I spent 3 hours working on this assignment. 3 hours. I copied out Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken in my absolute best handwriting. Every letter was carefully formed, every line was perfectly straight, margins were exact. I even used one of those expensive gel pens that made everything look smooth and professional. I was actually proud of how it turned out. It looked like something you'd see in a museum display case. I turned it in on a Tuesday morning, feeling confident I'd finally get a perfect handwriting score from Mrs. Henderson. She was notorious for never giving anyone higher than a B+ on handwriting, no matter how good it looked. Thursday comes around and she hands back our papers. I'm expecting to see my beautiful Frost poem with maybe an A at the top. Instead, there's a big red F circled at the top of my paper and a note that says, "See me after class." I was completely confused. I looked at my paper over and over, trying to figure out what could possibly be wrong with it. The handwriting was perfect. Every word was spelled correctly. The margins were exact. After class, I walked up to Mrs. Henderson's desk holding my paper. "I don't understand why I got an F," I said. "What did I do wrong?" She looked at me with this serious expression like I'd committed some major academic crime. "You cheated," she said. I was stunned. "What? How did I cheat? I copied the poem exactly like you told us to." "That's not your handwriting," she said, pointing at my paper. "This is too perfect. You obviously had someone else write this for you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mrs. Henderson, that is my handwriting. I spent 3 hours working on it." She shook her head. "I've been teaching for 22 years. I know what 8th grade handwriting looks like, and this isn't it. This looks like an adult wrote it. But it's mine. I can prove it. Want me to write something right now?" She handed me a piece of paper and told me to write out the first stanza of the poem. So I did, in the exact same careful handwriting I'd used for the assignment. Mrs. Henderson looked at what I'd written, then back at my assignment, then at me. "This proves my point," she said. "No 8th grader can maintain this level of consistency. You clearly practiced this specific poem with someone else writing it first, then copied their style." I was getting frustrated. "That doesn't even make sense. Why would I practice cheating? Why wouldn't I just do the assignment myself?" "I don't know your motivations," she said, "but I know academic dishonesty when I see it." She gave me a 0 on the assignment and made me write a 1-page apology letter about the importance of academic integrity. Plus, I had to redo the entire assignment during lunch detention for a week. But here's the kicker. She made me redo it with normal 8th grade handwriting. She literally wanted me to make my handwriting messier and less careful so it would look more age appropriate. I was furious. I went home and told my parents what happened. My dad looked at my original assignment and said it was the best handwriting he'd ever seen me do. My mom was so angry she wanted to call the school, but Mrs. Henderson stuck to her story. She was convinced I cheated, and nothing was going to change her mind. The worst part was that other kids in class started looking at me differently. Word spread that I'd gotten caught cheating on a handwriting assignment, which honestly sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. I spent my lunch periods for a week sitting in her classroom, rewriting Robert Frost poems with deliberately sloppy handwriting. Mrs. Henderson would walk by and nod approvingly when she saw letters that were crooked or spacing that was uneven. "Much more authentic," she'd say. The whole thing was insane. I got punished for doing an assignment too well. I got accused of cheating because I took too much time and care with my work. To this day, I have terrible handwriting. After that experience, I just gave up trying to write neatly. What was the point? If doing your best just gets you accused of fraud, why bother? My mom still brings up the handwriting incident whenever we talk about my school days. She says it was the moment she realized some teachers are just completely unreasonable, and sometimes the system punishes kids for the wrong reasons. Mrs. Henderson retired a few years later. I heard through the grapevine that she'd accused 3 other students of handwriting fraud during her last year of teaching. Apparently, I wasn't the only kid whose crime was caring too much about doing good work. The really crazy part? That original assignment is still in my parents' house somewhere. Every once in a while, my dad will pull it out and show it to people as an example of how ridiculous school administration can be. "Look at this," he'll say. "My kid got an F for having handwriting that was too good." People always think he's joking until they see the actual paper with a big red F and Mrs. Henderson's angry notes about academic dishonesty. 15 years later, and it's still the dumbest reason I've ever been punished for anything.